ladies and gentlemen, head coach Troy G. Ward.
Troy, this is 6 wins in a row for you now, all real close games. I mean, how do you sort of just analyze the success you guys have been able to have in terms of just getting these results in a row?
I guess repetition. We keep playing close games. We keep finding a way. I don't know. I think we're just like I've said before in here. The temperature of our group is like medium rare. It's just the way we are. We don't get too high. We don't get too low, and we don't have huge emotional swings where I think that we panic or we feel like we've got to push harder. And a lot of times that's just like that's the makeup of the group. That's the makeup of the family. That they're a close group, and so I think they feel like they support each other really well and they battle for each other really well. And it's just kind of it's more of I guess I'm trying to say it's the DNA of our room. Like, it's just the way the team is, and they don't mind playing in that state. Like, they really enjoy that state, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Michael Furland, pretty nice breakthrough for him tonight. Curious what you just thought of his accomplishments this evening, and then just how he's been throughout the season to this point, I guess.
Well, the latter question is, how's he been throughout the season? He really hasn't done much. Nothing personal. It's just the way it's been for Michael. He's a kid that's got a high pedigree behind him. He's been a good WHL player. He was in here a year ago in the fall, and we kind of bounced around with Michael a little bit and tried to figure it out. And it was hockey-wise in a lot of ways it was fine. What people don't understand, it was a maturity issue. It was, basically a 20-year-old that was living like a 17-year-old. So when you try and do that in this room, in this environment, it becomes very difficult. And that's not a knock against Michael. It's just where he was at in his development process. So he went away, and then he came back this year. He had a good Young Guns tournament, and then he kind of went through the training camp, and he went against the men again, and then he kind of took a step back again. He had a little bit of an injury. And then since he's been here, he's been kind of feeling his way. I think he's just a young man that's trying to feel his way into pro hockey, and he got his first 2 goals as a pro today, and at least here in Abbotsford. And so the neat part about that whole experience for Michael, even though he hasn't played that well up until now, is the team is like elated in there. Like, this is a guy that'll fight for his teammates. This is a guy that'll be physical and do a lot of good things. But they're really excited for Michael because they know it's been a little bit of a grind for him. It's been a grind, and it's been more of a mental grind than it's been a physical grind. So those things take time, but I think everybody in the room is really excited for Michael, and rightfully so. He did a good job tonight.
Dean named captain of the team. Do you want to talk a little about the choice to name him as the captain, and obviously in his hometown?
Well, it's a neat thing for Dean. He's been a leader in most every team he's ever been around, so that part is part of his now. It's part of his past. The one thing about Dean is he's a consummate leader. He's a leader on the ice. He's a leader off the ice. I think he's a leader during moments of truth when life isn't always so easy. I think he has a good blend and a good feel for the temperature of his teammates and how he plays himself. And he's at a point in his career where he doesn't have to do a lot of work on himself to get himself ready. So he's really able to feel the temperature of the room and have a real sense of how everybody's doing. He was voted the captain today by his teammates, which I think is the best honor you can get in sport. Like, I really believe that's a special time to be named a captain by your peers. So he was, I wouldn't say a landslide, but he was significantly above Banks and Byron, who were named assistants. So neat for Dean. I think great for our community. Like, we've got a great place to live and play, and there's a lot of good players that have come and gone through Abbotsford, and I think any time, like the Vander Gulicks and the Arsene and certain people that can play here, it's a real benefit to our community. So I'm happy for Dean and his whole family.
Troy, you lost Roman Horak due to trade yesterday.
Yep.
How tough was it for you to see him go and say goodbye to him this morning, as well as the team?
That was tough. We had a tough day yesterday on the phone, Roman and I, after we talked to Jay Feaster. Special man, for a European guy living in another part of the world. Obviously played in Chilliwack for 4 years, and he's comfortable with our society around here. But still, it's different. It's a lifestyle. It's different. I thought Roman embraced everything, and obviously had a great push out of his first year as a pro, and ended up playing in Calgary the whole year. And And then it's kind of trickled down over time here to Abbotsford. So we become very close with him, both and myself and with the team. And so it was a tough goodbye today, but we always do a round of clicks. So we did a round of clicks for Roman today. He asked one thing last night on the phone. He said, is there a chance I can come in and say goodbye to my teammates? That's what you ask us to do. So will I be afforded that time? And we afforded him that time. And I think that says enough. That's a classy man. So he came in this morning, spent some time with his teammates, and ironically, if he ends up in Oak City, we play him, next Friday. So he said that's going to be a little bit weird. So I'm sure it'll be a little different for everybody. But Craig Conroy's here, one of our management teams, and just good experience. When you have players like Craig that have played 1,000 games, he grabbed Roman today and he said, my whole career changed around when I got traded from Montreal to St. Louis. He said, so let's hope that this is the same for you. So in our business, as tough as it is, we always wish people, as we see them exit us, do really well. So hopefully for Roman that works out for him.
Very explosive offense to close out the first period. Is that like your team? You talk about not getting too high, but where did that come from?
Well, I think we have the ability to do it. I think because we're so young, we're a rhythm team. Like, we have to have some confidence. I think we're kind of like shadow boxers out there. Like, we don't really beat ourselves. We kind of go, but I'd like to see our team really get confident. So one thing we talked about before the game, which is a skill that you have in life, is that oftentimes when I was a college coach, the biggest skill I looked for was self-confidence in a player or in a person, period. Like, it's one thing to say you have good skills. It's another thing to say that you're big and you're strong. It's another thing. When you find people that have self-confidence and their self-talk is unbelievable, you have special people. And so those are the people you want to have, and I think we're growing in that area. Because we're young, we have to be conscious of our voice and how we talk to ourselves and how we handle success and how we handle failure. But I thought that if this group does get confident and continues to mature and grow, I think we're capable of doing that. I just don't know if it's a regular thing yet. Obviously, it hasn't been, but it was good tonight, obviously.
Are any of the players on the team trying to grow mustaches for November?
Yeah, I think so. But because of our age, I think it's a slow developing process in there. But I think, some guys are, and, it's interesting you say that because it affects every team different, from coaches. I notice the Calgary games. I watch them all in entirety, and, a couple of coaches are growing them there, and Bob's not. And so it kind of depends. The teams seem to rally around it and do it, or some teams don't. But we've got a few in there, but they're in a slow process right now. We're 8, 9 days in.
Who would you think has the best and the worst mustaches?
Ooh, I don't know if I could say that right now. I think that Arsene is going to have one of the better ones. If Kandari just wants to let her go, like, he's going to have one for sure. But I don't know if that's Mark's style. But, the guys that aren't going to have a lot will be the Carter Bankses of the world and the Paul Byrons and certain guys like that. They're just not into that thing, and there's not a lot growing there. So it's all right.
On a little bit of a different tack, do you have a Mike Bossy memory that you want to share with us?
No, I would just say the Mike Bossy memory I would have is just one of admiration. I grew up in Minnesota and played hockey on a lake my whole life, and started skating when I was like 1.5, and I just remember watching him grow up and myself grow up and watching him play and just coming down. The biggest thing is I always sticks out in my mind. He's one of the few guys that I think it's a forgotten skill in the game who could actually shoot and skate at the same time. That's called shooting in stride, and that's a lost art in today's game. But he certainly has that ability, and when he played, and obviously, by his stats they read today, he could do that. So that's the one that sticks out for me the most. Obviously, during their 4 championship runs, that's the ones that you kind of remember the most. But I always was told, I didn't get a chance to meet him, I was told he was a really classy guy and a really hard-working guy, and unfortunately, because of his injuries, it set him back. But I can tell you this, like, skating and shooting was an art for that guy, and he was one of the best ever, if not the best, probably shooting in stride. So nice touch by our organization to have those type of players here. I think it's exciting.
Great. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Yep.
I was kidding around with Walter after the last game.
Who was that?
With the president.
Walter? Yep, Walter.
Yeah. And, we're talking, and I says, well, the one thing I noticed about your team is that defense is about a split second too slow passing the puck out of their own end. It cost a couple of goals. it's about telling to the coach. So since you're here, I thought I mentioned it.
Yeah. Well, I thank you very much for that. It is an issue. It is an issue for our team, and it's going to be an issue probably for a little bit yet until we mature through the process. We're a process group in there. We're not really a result group, so we deal with process, and a lot of that has to do with our maturity. A lot of it has to do with some guys just have some nice mitts, and some guys have some work to do with their hands. But in general,
The coach, you know?
yeah. The coach knows, and but now I think we all know. So that's a really good thing. It's a thing where I'll have to do is show this tomorrow. I don't have to ask him how to play. I can just tell him we've got to move pucks quicker. Yeah, no. That's great. I love that. Yeah, that's fine. No problem at all. Any other questions?
Thank you, Troy.
Thank you very much.